episode 4 of making parchment. So far we've had a wet scrape of the skin and a dry scrape, and we've re-wet it and left it to stretch for a few days. Today we're going to be using the cuttlefish and some sandpaper to rub over to give it a really nice smooth finish. So it's the same as before, a nice circular motion with the cuttlefish covering all of the surface, making sure to do both sides. There's still quite a lot of dust that comes off, and it's probably a good idea to be wearing a mask, but as they are in very short supply at the moment, I don't think I count as an essential worker. And when that felt all nice and smooth, I decided to move on to the sandpaper. So I start with 100 grade, which is quite rough. And I use a flat hand. And again, it's just a circular motion. I mean, I'll be totally honest with you, I don't really know what I'm doing here. I don't know how long you're supposed to do it for, but it felt nice to do, so I just carried on doing it and feeling for rough spots, and it was just quite a nice relaxing exercise to do out in the sunshine. And then I changed to the 220 sandpaper. This one felt really nice actually, because it's kind of not too rough, not too smooth. Yeah, I enjoyed this bit, it was nice. And yeah, I decided to cut this piece off because I kept catching it, so I thought it's best to just get rid of it for good. There's nothing I can do about it, so I just have to live with the hole. And then smoothed around the edges. And then I moved on to the very fine grade, which is 400. And then leave for about a week to dry thoroughly. So I thought in this interlude I would say a bit about the sources I'm using, so that you know I'm just not completely making it up as I go along. I'll give a few examples of the historical references we have, and then I'll talk about the few people that have been influential to me in exploring the process of manuscript production. The British Library has a manuscript, Harley MS 3915, that contains various recipes and instructions on techniques for the arts. It dates from the second half of the 12th century and originates from Germany. Towards the end of the manuscript, there is a folio giving information on how to prepare goat skins for parchment. After the skins have been soaked in a lime bath and dehaired, it tells us to attach the cords and tie them to the circular frame. Dry, then shave them with a sharp knife, after which leave for 2 days out of the sun. Moisten with water and rub the flesh side with powdered pumice. After 2 days, wet it again by sprinkling with a little water and fully clean the flesh side with pumice so as to make it quite wet again. Then tighten up the cords, equalise the tension so that the sheet will become permanent. Once the sheets are dry, nothing further remains to be done. And as I found when I was scraping and smoothing the goat skin, there was significant more work needed on the flesh side than the hair side, and these instructions seem to back that up, so that's fairly reassuring. Next is this image that has already been featured in the first video. This is from the Hamburg Bible, produced in 1255. The parchment frame with the skin attached to the individual holes is visible, as is the lunellum at the bottom. This next image, also from Germany, is from 1425, and as you can see has the standard features of the parchmenter. Skin attached to wooden pegs and a crescent-shaped blade. Here's a 15th century Italian image that shows a parchmenter's shop. There are rolled sheets of parchment on the shelves, with the men cutting sheets to size and rubbing them down with pumice or cuttlefish to prepare the surface. And what medieval manuscript tutorial is complete without some amusing marginalia? So here is a 14th century image of a monkey with some stretched parchment on a table, ready to smooth down with a pumice stone. And the process of preparing parchment hasn't really changed since. There might be a few more fancy tools and equipment, but the fundamental process hasn't altered since medieval times. There is only one parchmenter business still left in the UK, and that goes by the name of William Cowley. Their use of traditional skills and techniques means that they produce extremely high quality vellum and parchment, so I would definitely recommend getting your parchment from them. I'm clearly not a parchmenter, but these practical exercises demonstrate to me just how skilled these types of professions were, and still are. For modern sources, I would suggest anything by Christopher de Hamel or Patricia Lovett. Patricia, in particular, has not only written a great range of guidebooks on medieval calligraphy and illuminations, but she has also produced a number of instructional videos with the British Library. And then on YouTube, there's a channel called 3 Talking Rabbits, which provides much more in-depth footage of parchment preparation, and I really recommend watching those. I don't know the name of the lady who does the videos, but she seems to really know what she's doing. What I'm doing in these videos is just a practice exercise. I had an idea to make a manuscript from scratch, scribe it, decorate it and bind it. And I was going to use the parchment that I'd ordered from William Cowley's, which are these, there's 4 here, lovely sheets of beautifully prepared vellum. But, in my infinite wisdom, I decided that I wanted to try and make some parchment myself. If this process with the goat skin isn't too much of a disaster, I'm going to move on to calf skin, which means I need to scale up and need a much bigger parchment frame. But it would be really nice to have prepared the parchment that goes into the manuscript that I want to make. And the best thing is, I'm not aiming for perfection. I want mistakes and imperfections to be visible so that the challenges and difficulties bear witness in the finished product. So I'm going to wait for a week now for the goat skin to fully dry out, and in the next video I'll get to see what kind of parchment I end up with.